Everyday urban life in the context of Queensland in the year 2080 was an exploratory research-based assignment. It was completed as part of the QUT unit Critical Experience Design, taught by Dr. Heather McKinnon. Project speculates on the banal aspects of everyday life and how they may differ in the future. Through the lens of fashion design, I was able to explore three socio-technical themes. First, climate change and sustainment. Second, the implications of technology on manufacture and design. And finally, economic systems as they apply to fashion production and consumption. I highlight the opportunities for fashion education to incorporate cross-disciplinary design practices, like speculative design, to make tangible the need for climate-resilient thinking in future fashion practices. It provokes a wider society to consider the impacts to their local environment from their fashion consumption habits, and it provides considerations for Queensland fashion designers and design students around emerging materials, practices, and technologies for sustainable garment production. Speculative design is a discipline aimed at creating tangible links, or a perceptual bridge, if you will, between the present and possible futures. Speculative design uses provocation to challenge audiences. It asks them to consider the future implications of their actions. The field affords audiences the ability to imagine beyond a single plausible future. Instead of the future, audiences consider that there are many possible futures. Speculative design uses future casting tools, such as Voris's Future Cone and the Four Corners of Possibility. These tools assist in ideating a multitude of possible futures. Potential futures are then communicated to audiences using artifacts, or props. The goal is to highlight the potential each person has to shape the future. In the words of Dunn and Raby, by taking recognizable contemporary artifacts and altering them or changing their situational context, speculative designers aim to provoke audiences into considering how their actions here and now might lead to a future we greatly want to achieve or perhaps avoid at all costs. Who are we designing for? It's tempting to think that we are designing for the people of Queensland in 2080. But this isn't true. In creating critical or speculative designs, we are designing for present-day people. Dunn and Raby say, "We are designing for the people of today, for the designers, innovators, decision-makers, and even the everyday person. We are designing to provoke them, to encourage them, to consider the impacts of their choices, and to open up spaces of debate and discussion around what types of future world we would like to create." Through my design response, I aim to show contemporary audiences the resilience and fortitude that will be needed to survive in this post-Anthropocene world. Resilience and fortitude are major parts of the Queenslander identity. In a state where natural disasters, including droughts, flood, cyclones, and fires are frequent, the need for preparedness and resilience are well recognised. Advertisements to prepare for storm season or invitations to join the Mud Army might seem surprising to visitors, but border on the everyday for Queenslanders. To have an impact on such an audience, I felt that my response needed to convey the high level of resilience that will be needed for the most everyday of tasks, getting dressed. In order to imagine a convincing future, it's necessary to first understand all the potential values that may act as value levers for a future world. My background research covered a wide range of areas relevant to the fashion industry in Queensland, including fibre production, manufacture, design, innovation, climate change, and economics. Futures in science fiction and popular culture are often impossibly idyllic or disturbingly dystopian. Such scenarios aren't out of the question, but we'll probably borrow from both ends of the spectrum. Future casting tools bring a nuanced and balanced approach to imagining what the future might look like. As part of my design process, I wrote a short narrative to solidify the future world I was imagining. Urban Queensland in 2080 is a world divided. There are those who believe in exponential technology growth, technologists, and those who believe the world should return to a pre-1950s model of living and consumption, restorationists. Despite their differences, both groups work to uphold this period of sustainment, a time in which the world is on pause as residents work to solve the problems caused by the defuturing of past generations. Loyalties are communicated through people's fashion choices. Restorationists follow a slow fashion approach, favouring local production and traditional techniques. They prefer natural fibres, adapted for growth and wear in the hot Queensland climate. They seek longevity through quality and timeless styles. In contrast, technologists embrace all things revolutionary in the world of fashion. This group displays their loyalty through nanotech fibres that shapeshift and change colours. Their styles change rapidly, but are able to be fully recycled into a new outfit almost instantly. Manufacturing techniques have revolutionised the way fashion is created. Both sides are served by the creation of a direct peer-to-peer economy. With a universal basic income, craftsmanship has once more become valued. People are able to directly collaborate with designers to create fashions. These garments display their beliefs choice and communicate and express their individual identity. This narrative was created following an exercise called the 4 Corners of Possibility. The 4 Corners of Possibility, introduced by Jim Data, was first used to categorize visions of the future from a range of sources. Data found that all future scenarios could be placed in one of 4 generic futures. Stuart Candy further expanded on the 4 generic futures. He used them as a generative tool rather than for categorizing. The quadrants are: continue, what are the ways in which the system in which we find ourselves could continue as it is? Collapse, what are the ways in which it could fall apart? Discipline, what are the ways in which it could be directed? Transform, what are the ways in which it could change altogether? To solidify my concepts, I used mood boards and color boards to capture the aesthetic and feeling that I was starting to imagine for 2080. As noted by Cassidy, the mood board development process is the stage where the problem space and solution space begin to merge. I created 2 mood boards, one for the restorationists and one for the technologists. Concept art and collage work as powerful speculative imagery tools. For my initial concept art, I once again used skills gained in my studies of fashion design. I used Croquis from the iPad design app Preta Template to create a series of fashion sketches. In my second assignment, I further developed the concept by creating a digital collage of an artifact. Using stock images, my own photography, and Adobe Photoshop, I created a digital artifact of a vintage sewing machine. It was retrofitted to break down synthetic textiles. I reconstituted these into filament for extruding 3D print garments in the user's own home. In order to create the perceptual bridge, I used images easily recognizable to a contemporary audience. These included my vintage Singer sewing machine, fast fashion items, a dress form, pipes, and a funnel. I created a surreal, futuristic image by using transparencies of iridescent materials and by adjusting the scale of objects. The assignment positioned the collages as advertisements. This allowed me to add some marketing-style text to further support and explain the concept. Retrofit Kit by Future Atelier, turning grandma's trash into our treasure since 2063. The slogan makes a connection between current consumption of fast fashion and its lingering effect on future generations. The culmination of the first assignment was the development of socio-technical themes. These themes became the foundation of the second assignment, and they have also become problem spaces I am endlessly curious about and hope to further explore in postgraduate research. Implications of technology on manufacture and design. The 4th Industrial Revolution is being embraced by the fashion industry, focuses on digitization and virtualization of manufacturing and design processes. There is also a lot of research being conducted in the areas of new fibers and post-consumer waste. Advances in technology in the fashion industry have led to a speeding up of fashion cycles. Originally 2 seasons, now sometimes daily drops. It has also led changes to styles and silhouettes. For example, athleisure with the advent of flat seams and seamless performance knits. The fashion industry and consumers have recognized current fashion consumption is not sustainable, and yet many still consume in an unchanged manner. One implication of the future technologies will be advances in textile waste management to allow for this rate of consumption. Climate change and sustainment. Tony Fry, in his book Designer's Politics, predicts that we are entering a period of global instability. This instability will be brought about primarily through the impacts of climate change. Reduced access to resources and increases in natural disasters will lead to political instability and displaced populations. Fry describes our current period as one of defuturing, where planetary boundaries are pushed beyond their limits. Currently, we make feeble attempts at repairing climate change through sustainability. This is not enough. Fry proposes that we need to move to a period of sustainment, which will not repair the damage done, but will buy humanity time to work towards repair. The future I envisage for Queensland in 2080 sits in this period of sustainment. Through a fashion lens, this would look like drastically reduced patterns of consumption, a return to craftsmanship and quality, and considered design for every stage of the garment life cycle. Economic systems as they apply to fashion production and consumption. Kate Raworth, in her book Donut Economics, argues that our current economic models based on capitalism are not sustainable. Current economic systems rely on constant consumption and never-ending growth. Yet as Raworth points out, growth can only continue so long as there are resources to feed it, but the world has finite resources, what Raworth defines as the planetary boundaries. Donut economics is a model for living and creating inside these boundaries. Another system that works well with this is the concept of circular economies, as outlined by William McDonnell and Michael Braungart in their book Cradle to Cradle Design. This is an area gaining interest in the fashion industry, but is still in its infancy. Another economic system that may be well established by 2080 is the peer-to-peer economy. This economy may operate through sharing or direct financial transactions, both of which have become easier through digitization. This assignment focused on speculating on the banal aspects of everyday urban life in Queensland in the year 2080. Through cross-disciplinary implementation of fashion and speculative design tools, I have depicted a future of sustainment, teetering on the edge between destruction and regeneration. In doing so, I've highlighted the high levels of resilience that communities will need to develop for completing the most everyday of tasks: getting dressed.